Hello, this is OverlordBou, and today I'll be covering the newest Tier 10 German hybrid cruiser, the Hellbrand. Now, I know a lot of people have been asking for a new Tier 10 German cruiser for a long time, and the answer from Wargaming is the Hellbrand. Now, believe it or not, before anyone says this is a real ship, this is actually a real design. The Hillbrand is based off the 1942 Atlantic cruiser carrier design, being a hypothetical conversion of the Zero class cruiser into a cruiser dash carrier hybrid. Germany was definitely cooking when it came to their ship designs on this one. Now, what makes this ship special is the fact that this thing gets two tactical planes. It gets torpedo bombers and dive bombers, and boy, do these things pack a punch. Now, the ship also gets six 305mm guns, which we'll be talking about in a moment. Now, if you're wondering how to get this ship, I'll explain it later in the video, but pretty much basically how you get it is you have to either get it from containers or you spend enough money trying to buy from containers that you're then able to then get it for a credit. There are bundles that you have to get it from, so there's bundles. So if you don't get it from the bundles, then then at the very end of that, you're then able to get it for one credit, so if you're able to do that. So pretty much it costs 1,250 doubloons per each container with a 2% chance to get the ship. And there is a total of 50 containers at a cost of 49,874 doubloons. So yeah, it's gonna be it's pretty expensive. So if you don't get it after all of that, then you'll just be able to get it for one credit. But yeah. But moving on, let's talk about the overall ship stats. For the whole, you have a 63,650 HP pool, which is excellent for a cruiser, with a 27mm bow/stern, which isn't the best. It makes it where you're going to be able to not get penetrated by cruisers or lower caliber guns from the battleships. It'd be up to the 380mm. Once they go above that to the 406s, then they're going to be able to pen the bow, so you got to be careful of that. Now, you do have a 30mm deck with a 90mm side armor, and the deck does sit on top of the superstructure as well, so you have to be careful of just being farmed out. You have to be very careful of that. Now, you do have a 190mm belt armor with a 37% torpedo protection and a 60-second fires. Now, while respectable on paper, the Hellbrand's survivability is questionable in practice due to her bow and playstyle and vulnerability to light cruiser HE spam. So, not to mention, you can't DCP fires when flying planes. So, if you start being farmed while you're flying around, then yeah, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. As you can see from the hull, there is two turrets in the front with a total of 6, and you have 305mm guns, and they're all forward facing. These guns are the exact same guns as the Agir, though with slightly more AP damage, which is why later in the video I'll be showcasing the build, and you'll be building into heavy AP on this ship. You do have a gun range of 18.5 kilometers with a 15-second reload, which is pretty excellent. You do get a battle cruiser accuracy, thank God, with a 25-second turret diverge, which is okay, but it's kind of irrelevant with the fact that, you know, the guns are forward facing. Overall, I would say these guns are pretty mediocre. You only have 6 of them, which means that the Hellbrand has a very lackluster of firepower, very low. Like, the all forward firing arrangement is great, but beware you can't kite effectively. Pretty much how this ship is meant to be played, you sit at an island and you sit there bow in. You use the cover of the island to make sure you don't get shot at, and then you use what this ship is meant to be using is its tactical planes. Now, you do get a torpedo bombers with a 80-second regen time, a squadron of 3, and it drops 1 torpedo per each of the bombers with a 4.5k damage per torpedo. And the cruising speed is 174 knots, and the top speed is 214. So these planes are really quick. Now, the dive bombers are what do the most damage. They have a 300-second reload time on them, so that takes a very long time. You do get a squad of 6, and it drops 1 HP bomb each, and they do 13,700 damage. Yeah, they do a lot of damage, and it is a very small circle reticle as well, so super accurate. And the first time for a tactical plane is that they also get a heal as well, which makes it where you're able to make sure that you're able to get all of your bombs off. You use that heal. It's very, very effective in that regard to be able to get those bombers to do a massive amount of damage and fire chance. Now, out of the two, the torpedo bombers deal the most mediocre damage, but it reloads really quick, which offers a lot of spotting and a lot of like picket damage, right? You're able to make them turn. You'll do like 8 or 9k usually if you hit all 3 torpedoes, and can be used versus destroyers, as you will be seeing later in the video, by skilled players, since they are the same type of torpedoes as the tier 10 Richtofens. So if you're used to playing Richtofen, then you're going to be really good at using these torpedoes. The dive bombers are legit laser guided nukes. It does take forever to reload though, but it causes massive damage to whatever they hit, and coincidentally your best weapon versus destroyers. Now you do get secondaries on this ship, 16 150mm guns and 16 105mm guns with an 8.3 kilometer base range, which can be increased to 12.5, which is pretty insane. It does have a standard accuracy, which is pretty bad. Now, it would have been good if she got improved dispersion like the other German, but unfortunately it's a noob trap and not worth, outside of PvE, it's not really worth building it outside of PvE. So, but again, if you use the Hild in PvE, it's probably not a good idea in the first place. Definitely just focus more on building away from the secondaries, because again, if you're being that close to where you're using the secondaries like that, then you're probably going to get killed. So best not to build it as secondaries on this ship. Now for the anti-air, it's not good. It won't protect you against any decent CV player, and it does have an ASW standard tier 10 cruiser airstrikes. It's okay overall due to the 8-kilometer range, so it's very nice for the ASW. For the maneuverability, you have a 34 knot top speed, which is very good for a cruiser, especially since you're going in one direction anyways. You're either going forward or you're going in reverse. You do have a 880mm turning radius, which is wide for a cruiser, but if you see how long it is, yeah, it kind of makes sense. You do have a 14.1 second turn time, which is very slow for a cruiser. You can go straight, pretty much from all this information, you can go straight in a straight line relatively fast, but when you're turning, you're not going to be going very fast at all. But again, this is good enough considering the Hellbrand is mostly just going to be sitting bow in to the enemy anyway, so you really don't have to be turning that much at all. For the concealment, you have a 12.5 kilometer best surface detection range with an 8.4 best air detect range, which is overall decent for what this ship is going to be doing. You're just going to be sitting at islands, hugging them, making their waifus, just sitting there, just waiting for enemies to push into you, or using it as cover so you can launch your plane so you don't get shot at while you're flying the planes around. So you do get a consumables. You get a standard 5-second DCP with the standard cruiser repair party and the special German hydro, which gives you a 6-kilometer ship detection and a 4-kilometer torpedo detection. Now for this point, you guys can take a look at the build. As you can see, for the skills, I build into the guns, as you can see, with the heavy AP, build into survivability as well with the superintendent and the survivability expert, as long as the concealment, with the concealment skill as well. For the modules, I build into the main guns as well. One of the modules I do build into the aircraft to be able to make them go faster and to get the reload a little bit quicker. And that's the build that I use for the Hildebrand. Now, the Hellbrand makes her entry into World of Warships as the first tier 10 German cruiser premium ever. And yes, you heard that right. 8 years have gone by, and finally, Germany gets a tier 10 cruiser premium. And well, sort of. Like, I know that a lot of people have been asking this for a very, very, very long time. They've been wanting more German cruisers in the game that are tier 10, and here we are. And as you can see, the Hellbrand is a unique hybrid cruiser that carries 2 tactical squads instead of the normal 1. The ship itself is nothing remarkable, as she gets the 6 forward-firing Agir guns, letting her bow in next to any islands. Now, you do get the weak gunfire, unfortunately, and her hull is definitely vulnerable to getting farmed by cruisers, which is why you have to make sure you sit on the correct side of the island so you don't get farmed and you have your teammates around, because if you don't have teammates around, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. But again, you're not playing this ship for the guns. You're playing this ship because of your inner CV main calling out for vengeance. Now, the fast reload of the torpedo bombers are really, really nice to do damage, but it's also there mainly for spotting, to help give your team spotting on DDs, cruisers, battleships, you name it. It's going to be really good for spotting. Now, they do struggle against even moderate anti-air, and it won't get an attack off an anti-air cruiser without island cover. So make sure you use that island cover to be able to sneak up on an enemy and get those torpedoes off. Now, still, a good player can use them to make DD lives miserable and even land torpedoes on them as well, since the torpedoes are really quick. Now, the real kicker is when you bring out your intercontinental ballistic missiles, the dive bombers, to obliterate some poor ship. Now, you combine the German plane speed, which can go up to 215 knots, use HE bomber firepower and laser guided accuracy, and you get the most powerful squad in existence. You only get 3 uses per game, though, with a 5-6 minute reload. So make sure that as soon as these become available, you do use them, so that you're able to use them throughout the match. Now, I would say overall, the Hellbrand is the kind of ship you'll get reported for just for playing, just from how many planes you'll be flying around in this thing. It's definitely an interesting ship for sure, but the amount of spotting she brings is annoying to deal with, and players will gladly remove you whenever possible from the match. Pretty much, if someone sees you, you're out in the open, you're dead. You're on a map without islands, you're dead. You have to stay really far back. You're not going to be able to move in at all, because if you do, you're just going to get farmed out really fast. Now, as I was saying earlier, this ship is available in containers for purchase or discounted in 10 consecutive bundles. If the Hellbrand is not received after 10 bundles, which is totaling 50 containers at 49,874 doubloons, the Hellbrand will be available for 1 credit. Now, each of these containers costs about 1,250 doubloons, so you have a 2% chance of getting the Hellbrand from the containers. So overall, is this a great tier 10 German cruiser everyone's asking for? No. It's a hybrid that is going to make DD lives suffer. Same with cruisers or battleships that are anywhere near this ship. If this ship is able to sit at an island uncontested and not able to be pushed, it's going to be so hard for anyone to deal with you. And the amount of damage you can do is going to be insane with the torpedoes and the dive bombers, because you can use your guns to get a fire going. They DCP, bring the torpedo bombs right over, get some perma fires going. They're not going to have a fun time at all dealing with that at all. No, it's not going to be a fun time at all. I was able to get a lot of citadels with this ship using those 305s. The gear guns are always really strong, which is why I build into the heavy AP on this ship. If you don't build in the heavy AP, yeah, it'll feel a little bit lackluster with the guns, but you definitely need that extra damage since the ship only has 6 guns, and you do have a 15-second reload, which you can build into, so I'd highly recommend that for this ship. Definitely don't build into secondaries. There's really no point to do that. You can if you want for PvE, but again, everything is so forward angling that you're not really going to be able to use them that much unless you're cutting away. And if you're doing that, you're going to be taking so much damage from absolutely everything. Now again, what did you learn from this video? The Hellbrand is an island camping cruiser where you're trying to be dark, you're not really using your guns that much, you're focusing more on using your tactical planes to do damage and spotting, and then using the dive bombers to do most of the major damage. And again, the torpedo bombers can do a lot of damage, you just have to know how to use them, which you should be able to at this point after watching this video. Now, that is going to be it. If you guys have any questions or concerns, definitely in the comments down below. This is OverlordBou, and I'll talk to y'all later.
Wir haben einen gegnerischen Kreuzer versenkt. Unser Sieg ist in Sicht.